Oh, before I forget, I want to clear up a rumor that I have been hearing out on the YouTube streets. And I don't know the origin, but I do know the accurate information. I am 99.99999% certain that Tricia was not temporarily appointed administrator of Miss Janet's will. In Texas, both sides generally submit their perfect outcome proposed orders, like, let me make it easy for you, Judge. Just sign right here on the line. Neither Tricia's orders nor Miss Daphne's proposed orders were signed or stamped. There are no minute entries or memorandums indicating that they were ever ratified. So this means that they are both in kind of proposed order purgatory. So please don't worry about how much damage Tricia could have done with authorization. Let's save our concern for the damage that she has done without authorization. Next, let's debunk the Be Me. Deus Ex Machina is a plot device used by authors who are lazy or who have reached their deadline. It means God from the machine. It's a cheap, quick exit, like, then I woke up and it was all just a dream. Tricia's Be Me Woo Woo BS is an example of Deus Ex Machina, the old trope about the spirit of my sugar mama texted Be Me from beyond the grave. Double barrel horse pucky. Tricia has been flapping her gums about how much she wishes an Apple expert could explain what happened. You better want what you wish for, ma'am, because an expert will be able to see everything that you have done with that phone. How many minutes have been spent in what apps at specific times on specific days. It tracks every time that the phone is plugged in and how long it's plugged in and every time that it's unplugged. It tracks how much battery each app uses. It tracks every deleted message and email, every single button touched. Tricia, dollars to donuts, you deployed a location pin when you were trying to disable location services. It is so easy. Here is how it happens. And I'm going to have an infographic up on the screen. But Tricia, I have some bad news for you. Faraday bags do not stop Apple Health from tracking steps. I know this firsthand because I conducted experiments and made videos with my findings during the Karen Reed trials. Not even Faraday bags inside of Faraday bags inside of Faraday bags, Russian nesting doll style, could prevent those steps from being logged. Almost nothing can promise that steps will be prevented from being logged because the mechanism gathering those steps is mechanical. Everything is recorded, every lock and relock, what time, what method. You want to try to cover your tracks? Go ahead. But it's kind of like freshly fallen snow. You can obscure or conceal your footprints, but the snow where you walked will never look like the untouched snow around it. Every attempt at deleting evidence will be recorded, and each effort will double your trouble. Evidence tampering is a serious crime. Withdrawing from the lawsuit was step one, Tricia, but your soul isn't safe from Satan yet. You need to return that phone, and don't you dare try to ransom it for a payout or some type of settlement. Don't you dare. Are you familiar with the phrase range of motion? If we become too dormant, we lose our flexibility. And if our conscience goes dormant from lack of use, we lose our range of emotion. I think perhaps your greed has eclipsed your hubris. I think you have lost touch with your moral compass. You have lost touch with the discomfort of shame and guilt and the power of integrity and truth. I have a lot more to say about this, but I want to try to get back to my outline and my slide deck. Oh, except for this. Next time you hear Tricia claim that YouTube Websleuths is not monetized, remember this magic moment. May 14th, 2026, a 48-minute video with 13 manually placed ads. It is important to me to bring you the best finished product that I can, which means a listening experience that is free of errors and is well organized. But I have been sick for the past 10 days, and I apologize in advance because this presentation is going to be neither of those things. But I just need to get these thoughts up and out so that my brain can stop thinking about them. Back when I was an English teacher, I used to remind my students of James Thurber's wise words. Don't get it right, just get it written. And that's the same mercy that I need to show myself right now. It's like Winston Churchill once said, perfection is the enemy of progress. And it's almost Shakespearean how easy it is to say and how difficult it is to breathe into daily practice. Finding peace in the progress is so challenging. Sometimes I make videos that you can just listen to in the background, but this one is going to involve lots of receipts and documentation, and I will be pointing out many additional things in the legal documents, but not necessarily speaking them out loud. I'll also be putting up video transcripts and whatnot, where you may end up wanting to pause the screen to read. But let's buzz through our docket because there are more than 10 things that we need to address. In this episode, we'll have a disclaimer, probate law, generalists versus specialists. We'll talk about first impressions, unpaid taxes, a crash course in online gambling, the court case, the will and the way, the secret weapon, how to report suspected estate fraud, how FOIA proved some fibs, Truth or Dare Tricia edition, and the Hollywood ending. I'm not a lawyer, but I do have a secret passion for contract law, kind of a hobby, I guess you could call it. And I especially enjoy trust and estate law because it's generally just contract law. Probate judges don't need to use as much personal discretion because really it's just a matter of close reading and being mindful of details. It's a little bit more like accounting, I guess you could say, than problem solving. So to me, probate feels like the most accessible division of the law, and the resources provided by the county are so thorough. There are websites with printable checklists and forms out the wazoo where people can educate themselves. I'm making it sound like anybody can do it, but that is not entirely true. This is a situation where you want to hire a specialist who exclusively works in trust and estate because they know the minutia in a way that a jack-of-all-trades attorney does not. Generalists know a little bit about many areas of the law, think width or breadth, whereas specialists have a depth of knowledge about a narrow topic, kind of like the difference between a pediatrician and an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And you are about to see this in action. So, Tricia apparently hired Goosebumps LLC, while Daphne hired a different firm. And I wish that I could say, two law firms, both alike in dignity in Fair North, Texas, where we lay our scene. But lying has never been my strong suit. When you navigate to the website of Tricia's attorney, it is not immediately clear what they do or how to reach them. When you click on areas of practice, you get a lot of information and different things that they do about 6 different areas of the law, like the Costco of the legal world, one-stop shopping. And maybe it would be possible if they have 6 different lawyers and each one has a different specialty. The firm appears to have 2 attorneys and they have the same last name. Oh, Lordy, and they practice in 9 counties. Some of the top attorneys that I have interviewed only practice in 1 county, or even a piece of 1 county. And this explains a few things. Okay, quick geography side quest. Texas has 254 counties. To help you visualize, the state of Connecticut is approximately the same size as 3 Texas counties. Even though Connecticut is a small U.S. state, it's still larger than 38 European countries. So we have two guys practicing 6 different kinds of law across 9 counties. How could they have time to become experts in anything? They've got to be running around like their arm hair is on fire. Continuing the first impression, by contrast, the website for Daphne's firm is immediately clear about their specialty, and their contact info is equally prominent via multiple methods. You can tell from 2 feet away from your computer, and presentation matters, especially when your key demographic might be visually impaired or technologically limited. This firm specializes in estate law, not criminal, not civil trials, not divorces or custody, only estates. It appears there are 6 attorneys, each with subspecialties within the area of probate law. And they also have 5 legal assistants on staff. This firm serves 6 counties from 2 offices. You see where they have the legal advantage, right? The difference in attention to detail and general finesse is going to be quite noticeable. Let's rewind to November 5th, 2025, 172 days after Miss Janet passed away. Tricia filed 2 documents on the same day, and those 2 documents contradicted themselves. I'll put the nitty-gritty on the screen. One of the documents was so deficient, it required the need for an amended version to be filed the next day. Yikes. An amendment that could have been prevented by simply proofreading. I had hoped that they would correct all of the deficiencies and contradictions, but they did not. The only thing they fixed is that the attorney had omitted an entire section of important stuff that they needed to add back in. But several problems remained. The main ones that jumped out to me were where Tricia claims that she is qualified to administer the estate, but this is not entirely true. Texas estate law requires executors to be Texas residents. And Texas law requires new residents to update their license plates within 30 days of moving here and their driver's licenses within 90 days. Tricia has resided in Texas since 2021, and she has not complied with either of those policies. It's not the end of the world. I mean, there are other ways that she might be able to demonstrate residency, such as a lease or utility bill. However, if those are registered in Janet's name, that could be a problem. In which case, Tricia could use her income tax returns to show residency, but historically we know that she hasn't been diligent about filing those, not to mention the overdue taxes that she currently owes in Utah. In an unrelated but potentially related fun fact, did you know that some online gambling forums automatically report all of your activity to the IRS? You know how when you're physically at a casino or like on a cruise and you only need to report if your winnings exceed a certain amount? So you might start with, say, $100 and you cycle it through the machines, probably Buffalo Triple Power if you're like me. You lose and you win back that same $100 5 or 6 times in one night. And generally life is good if you end your visit with around $100. If I'm understanding correctly, online gambling tracks every single transaction. So if you win $300 on your first bop of the button, and then you cycle that $300 through, and then you have a few smaller wins throughout the night, but you keep on pressing your luck, you might leave with empty pockets, but the record reports that you won $800 or much, much more. And the IRS is going to tax the heck out of it, somewhere between 24% and 37%. If you've been following the Laura Owens case, this is one of the suspected factors that led to Ron Owens' bankruptcy and foreclosure. Boy, if you like a good dumpster fire, that is one case you're going to need to check out. Okay, let's get back to to Tricia. The residency problem could also be solved by appointing a Texas resident as Tricia's representative. So Tricia could have gotten around this by appointing a representative, but who? If only we knew someone who was a Texas resident, perhaps a dear friend of Janet, and a financially disinterested party. Next, since Tricia claims to be a creditor, it seems like this could cause a conflict of interest in the administration of the estate, doesn't it? I mean, think of a traditional creditor. Would you feel comfortable having Discover Card in charge of managing your deceased friend's estate? It just feels like a bad idea. And here's Tricia claiming all kinds of conflicting information on the same day. There's not a will. Oh, but there may be a trust. These people named Daphne and her husband might be owed money, but also I believe they are thieves. Come on. And the notion that a creditor is telling the court there's no need for an appraiser to determine the value of the assets? Stop it. Here's another detail. Tricia presents Daphne with a Roanoke address, which is not incorrect. It's not illegal. But the truth is that Daphne lives in an enclave called Trophy Club. That's a part of town known for being very wealthy, which means instant street cred. We have other wealthy municipalities in Dallas that are similar, like Highland Park or Preston Meadows, where the billionaires like Mark Cuban and Ross Perot live. And these municipalities have Dallas zip codes. You can write either of those or Dallas on the mail, and it will still get there. But when people see the enclave name, they often make assumptions, as people do, like, okay, this person is clearly financially stable. So if the judge notices Trophy Club on the address in Daphne's filings instead of Roanoke and Tricia's, they might think, oh, this Daphne person likely has their ducks in a row. This person is doing something right in life. They do not need to exploit an estate. So the court posted up the required notices lickety-split, and wouldn't you know, 2 weeks later, there's an original answer from Daphne. See how Daphne presents herself? She uses the word friend and refers to Janet as Jan. Tricia never did that. Tricia hopped into the case as a creditor. Daphne brought the receipts and supplied the will, which appears to contain all of the necessary items to be valid. Let's take a moment to translate the will into plain English. Page 1, sections 1 through 6 are pretty straightforward. All prior wills are null and void. Not married. Number 3, no kids. Number 4, here's how I define kids so that nobody tries to say, she called you her daughter. There will be receipts. Number 5, personal representative is the phrase that I'm going to use to describe the executor or the administrator. And number 6, I'm appointing this person to fulfill this role, and if she's unable or unalive, I'm going to appoint this other person. Item number 7 is important. Miss Janet is saying that she doesn't want the administrator to post up a bond. Think of bond like a security deposit for renting an apartment. It limits or offsets the potential cost of damages, and symbolically, it's telegraphing the message that you're financially stable enough to part with that money for a length of time and still be able to function day to day. I think of bonds as almost like prepaid insurance against yourself. Daphne indicated that the estate value is probably in excess of $360,000. The actual cost paid to a surety company for the bond would be much smaller. Probate bonds usually cost roughly 0.5% to 2% annually, depending on the administrator's credit or risk. So a $360,000 bond might cost somewhere between $1,800 and $7,200 per year. But this could create a hardship for the people that Miss Janet had originally appointed, who even back in 2011 may have been living on a fixed income. So she is specifically indicating that she doesn't want them to go through that. We already know her backup plan is to give to the animal shelter, so this was a low-risk decision that she made to not have a bond. Item number 8 is critical. This is where Miss Janet is spelling out specifically what rights and responsibilities that her administrator will have. And it's really easy to look at this section and get overwhelmed. But when we break it down, it's pretty simple. Just keep your eyes on the Post-it notes that I'll put up on the screen. So number 1 says, I give you the power to pay my debts, funeral expenses, and any expenses related to the administration of my estate. By the by, someone who is acknowledging funeral expenses as opposed to something more specific, like organ vessel donation or cremation or burial, doesn't seem strongly anti-obituary, do they? I feel like I need to make a whole separate video addressing this. We'll see. First things first. And then Miss Janet says, if any of my real estate has a mortgage, whomever gets the house gets the mortgage debt too, aka do not use any net proceeds to pay off this amount. Now, Miss Janet was a fine businesswoman. She did a series of clever real estate maneuvers back when she purchased her home, which allowed her the opportunity to pay that mortgage off in 13 years, which I guess I need to make another video about because it really is a thing of beauty worthy of celebration. Miss Janet may have only taught for 3 years, but both of her parents were teachers at various times, and so were many of her aunts, uncles, and cousins. As a matter of fact, if I counted properly, I think she had at least 32 first cousins. So anyway, that sense of personal accountability that teachers often share is present here in Miss Janet's estate. No moochers. Section B addresses the manner of administering her estate. She's prioritizing simplicity, efficiency, and keeping it out of the courts. That is one strike for you, Tricia Griffith. Section C. Do whatever you want with my personal belongings without fear of being held responsible if it turns out to not be a profitable decision. You have my permission. Section D says, do whatever you want with my real estate without fear of being held responsible if it's not a profitable decision. And again, she's just saying, you have my permission. I need to pause here to say that Miss Janet must have really loved and respected Betty Jane and Jim Burks to have entrusted them so tremendously with her estate. Okay, Section E, same carte blanche goes for her financial portfolio. Section F addresses her bank accounts. Section G is about any businesses that she may have shares in. Section H gives directions about lawsuits. But again and again, the message is the same. Do whatever you see fit. I trust your judgment. Ooh, and look at letter I. Well, no wonder Daphne hired such a powerful firm if she had carte blanche to be able to make decisions about hiring attorneys. I'm not really sure why item J is included since it talks about what should happen if minors somehow become beneficiaries of Miss Janet's estate. Number 9 is kind of like, but wait, there's more. All these powers are in addition to whatever powers the state gives you to be my representative. And then we return to the self-explanatory stuff. So the next section is called Disposition of Estate. Dis is the Latin prefix that means apart or away. So we're looking at Janet's wishes for how this estate is going to be divided and allocated. Number 10 says any beneficiaries need to survive me for at least 30 days. So this means that if the beneficiary dies before 30 days, the legal document governing the distribution of the estate would be Miss Janet's will. But if the person dies after 30 days, then the beneficiary's will would govern the distribution of the assets because Miss Janet's estate has now been combined with the recipient's estate. Number 11 names two heirs. We're going to call them Betty and James. Betty's obituary is easy to find. James's obituary is not. In fact, I have found nothing conclusively showing that James Robert Burks is deceased. Additionally, his property in Glen Heights or Glen Oaks it's still in his name, but Dallas County Central Appraisal District is kind of known for, well, they have a big job, so sometimes details fall through the cracks. I repeat, I have found no definitive record that Mr. James Robert Burks, with a date of birth of January in 1944, has passed away. There are other James Burkses of different ages with different middle names or from different locations, but nothing specific about this one. So if I were a judge, I might request more information about this. Number 12, we have the wipeout clause designating the animal shelter if neither of the appointed heirs are able or alive to receive the estate. And you know what's weird to me? Out of the more than 140 details that Tricia has told us about Miss Janet in those 3 main videos, she never mentioned that Miss Janet was an animal lover. She never mentioned that Miss Janet had designated the animal shelter to receive the estate, even though 2 of those videos were filmed in March of 2026, 4 months after Tricia had read Miss Janet's will. So she knew exactly, and yet she never mentioned something about Janet that is clearly important, something that Miss Janet definitely valued. The idea of caring for the animals was important to her. Am I the only one that thinks that's peculiar? It seems like a more important detail to share than, say, that hilarious time Miss Janet got her head stuck between the prongs of her nightstand, right? Number 13, if you weren't listed, it was deliberate. That's another strike against you, Trish. Number 14, this one gives directions about how to handle things if the debts exceed the assets of the estate, which is not a concern here. Number 15 is a no contest provision. I think it's called in terrarum in Latin. I love it because it means anyone who challenges this will is automatically disqualified from receiving anything. So you can't terrorize your way into the will, Tricia. No contest clauses are enforceable provided that they were created in good faith and with just cause. And this means that the person contesting the will, that's you, Tricia, has an extremely high burden to overcome in convincing a judge that the contents of the will are invalid. And it's also strike 3 against Miss Janet's direct wishes. There are many reasons that beneficiaries can contest the will or the validity of a no contest agreement. However, the most common challenges are improper execution, undue influence by another person, or fraud. And I suspect that's why Trish was pushing the fraud allegation. It's basically her only path, but you could also tell that she was trying to leave the door open for the other 2 options just in case. Ironically, Tricia might cut off her nose to spite her face here. She's been going on and on about Daphne increasing that monthly disbursement, but for all we know, a portion of that may literally have been for Tricia in some capacity, or it might have been for any number of expenses related to Miss Janet's passing. Hospital bills, burial fees, who knows? Miss Janet told Tricia repeatedly that Daphne had things under control period. Tricia says so herself all the time. And these accusations that Tricia keeps making, that Daphne allegedly told her, "I get everything, you know," to me, that feels like an incomplete sentence. Like perhaps Daphne said, "I get to distribute everything," or "Janet left it all to me to distribute," or "to handle." So in my opinion, this may be a case of selective hearing from an unreliable narrator in the most benign case, or full-on manipulation in the most malignant case. Number 16 is what I call the baby in the bathwater provision. Basically, it says, if any detail I included here is considered unenforceable, you better still honor everything else that I directed. At the bottom of the page, we have the date that it was signed, July 21st, 2011, and the location, Mineola, and it's signed. The next 2 pages I made blurry on purpose because they just contain the private info of the 2 witnesses and the notary. So, provided that James Robert Burks is truly deceased, a loop that still needs to be closed in my opinion, this will is perfectly valid. Prepare to have your mind blown, Tricia. Wills do not have expiration dates, and 2011 isn't so old. I have bras that are older than that. So the big section of duties and responsibilities, that was the basis for Tricia's attorney's first fumble. They filed 2 documents on November 5th, which were both conflicting and deficient. And the very next day, we got that first amended filing because, as it turns out, Tricia and her attorney forgot to include what specific duties and powers they were requesting, which is like fundamental to their motion. Rookie mistake that you would not see out of Daphne's firm. Eventually, we had these 2 sets of proposed orders filed, and I'm going to apply my experience with Texas divorce and custody cases here. Like I said earlier, both Tricia and Daphne have submitted these proposed orders, and neither was entered as signed, accepted, endorsed, or ordered. There's nothing in the docket, no minute entries, no memorandum that would authorize what either party had proposed. Remember what I said in the beginning? Proposed order purgatory. But seriously, look at Tricia's proposed order. It's 2 pages versus Daphne's thorough multi-part submission, complete with a cover letter. Even at a glance, which one feels more fulsome and professional? On January 20th, 2026, the Cedar Hill attorney parachutes in and graciously acknowledges awareness of the will and the estate. He says that they are ready, willing, and able to receive the money at the Tri-City Animal Shelter. Adding insult to injury for old Trish, he endorses Daphne as the administrator. And for the longest time, that's all we had. Trish went prowling around the property at least twice in March. I've gone through and manually done the captions and subtitles on the 2 field trip videos, the versions that I posted, just in case any attorneys need to take screenshots of those transcripts. I'm also working on making an abridged and captioned version of the Woo Woo Memorial from last May, in case any investigators need that. Yes, investigators, because Dallas County has an entire division of government dedicated to investigating estate fraud and elderly abuse. I will put the link in the description box in case you would like to contact them and express your concerns about what has happened with this estate, as well as any concerns that you might have about Miss Janet being exploited by Tricia during her final years. My gut is telling me that Tricia brought us with her as witnesses, that she wasn't making trouble, but she clearly had an ulterior motive for being there. At some point, does anybody remember when, Tricia told us that she had withdrawn the suit which at the time was clearly a lie based on the filing that she made at the end of April, doubling down on her claims and accusations. I don't think she had a snowball's chance of legally claiming any part of the estate, but her plan may have been to pester Daphne into submission. I still can't believe that Tricia wanted to administer the estate when she couldn't even be arsed to notify the city of the water leak that she observed during her March 11th Snoop Fest. If you've been worried that there might be two villains in this story, and I'll admit that I've had moments of doubt too, now that the will is on file, the potential for damage is basically capped, and there's not much that Tricia or even Daphne can do to change that. The liquidated estate is going to the animal shelter. Now, Tricia, it's truth or dare time. Here is the scrutiny that comes with the recognition you so desperately want. You were quick, well, Stacy was quick, to try to create a post-mortem narrative of how helpful and humble you were in caring for Miss Janet. But later in that YouTube presentation, there was an odd phrase that I can't get past, that somehow Miss Janet's generosity toward you was a catalyst for a domino effect. Typically, such opportunity begets stewardship. It would empower someone to pay it forward. But your words say the opposite, that it somehow empowered Miss Janet to be generous to your associates. Tricia, it feels like you pimped out your friend, and that is just the beginning of a lengthy list of conflicting and concerning information. You told us that Miss Janet was unable to text in her final week to 10 days, but EMS records indicate that Miss Janet had personally called 911 for assistance twice in her final week. You made it seem like you were there around the clock. Where were you in her time of need? You told us that Miss Janet told you to go check on the animals, but you also told us that Miss Janet couldn't speak, that she could barely grunt in her final days. Which was it? You told us that you were super duper helpful while waiting for the ambulance to come get Miss Janet, but FOIA records don't support that Miss Janet was transported by ambulance to the hospital. So what really happened? You've presented it as if Miss Daphne held an illegal estate sale behind your back, but one, it was properly registered with the city of Duncanville, and two, you were there, and three, based on your extensive new wardrobe, it appears that you were permitted to pillage and plunder Miss Janet's belongings to your heart's content. So what are you even complaining about? You showed us a screenshot of a screenshot and thought anyone with half a brain would believe your ghost story. So we're supposed to believe that the ghost went through all the steps to unlock the phone, type in a location and cryptic message at the same time the phone was literally in your hands. You knew the second that message was deployed that you needed a cover story. You probably would have been better off just deleting it like the accident that it was, like you should have done with the quote-unquote accidental recording that you made last year at CrimeCon of Mr. Ramsey.
I gotta tell you one thing, everybody. I am a liar. I'm a big, fat, old, fat liar that wears a goofy cowboy hat. But the ends do justify the means, sometimes, at least in this case. And I'm going to go into more detail into what happened with the conversation between John Ramsey and myself at CrimeCon. It was very pleasant, but I do have to be careful because I can't get thrown out of CrimeCon. I just can't. And they're very, very strict now on how they do things. And I'll tell you more about that later as well. Okay. And I know they would have thrown me out or anyone out, and as they should have, because I wanted to be first in line for the meet and greet. It was packed. I was one of the first people in line. I found out that they have really increased things at security at CrimeCon. Now get this, when you go up, you have to shoot take your camera and shoot one of those QR codes. I hate those QR codes. They make me crazy. And then you have to fill in the information, who you are. I didn't think I had to give them my birth date. Okay. And then your email address. And so they know who you are. And then you have to take a picture with the person that you are meet and greeting. But here's the thing. You're only supposed to spend, 30 seconds. Hi, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. So I had our moderator from Websleuths.com, the true crime discussion forum, run out. Oh, Paula Woodward was there with them too. She's a former Denver news lady and news anchor. And she's written these stupid books, and they're just bad, talking about John Ramsey and John Bonet. And she rides on his coattails, in my opinion. And she believes the intruder theory, and she's full of it, in my opinion. She's just the worst. But she had books for sale. So I had Mad Magoo from Websleuths. I literally gave her a wad of cash. I said, go buy me 5 books, 5 Paula Woodward books. He's got to stand there and sign every one of them while I talk to them. And they can't make me move along because I bought these books and he's signing them. I said, that's the only way I'll be able to have a conversation with him. Bless her heart, she did. So I go up there and I'm carrying this stack of books. And I lied, flat out lied. Hi, Mr. Ramsey, I'm so sorry. I had a whole bunch of your books, but I left them back at the hotel. But I've got Paula Woodward books. Would you mind signing them? No, that'd be fine. Now, they also did not allow you to film or take pictures while you're there. While you couldn't personally do it while you were talking to the person. Now, they'd let people stand outside the rope lines and film, but you couldn't hear anything. Okay, so I couldn't stand there with a microphone and talk to him and have it be recorded. They wouldn't allow that. Accidentally left my cell phone video, like my camera, it takes video. I accidentally started a video. It was accident. It was an accident. And I sat my phone down and I got our conversation on audio. However, since the rules were that you were not supposed to record, I don't feel that I can legally play it, but I have it. I did type it out exactly what we said, okay? So I'm going to read it to you. But I do have this in audio, okay? Because of the rules of CrimeCon, I really don't want to get thrown out because of the rules they specified. So I wanted to follow the rules. So why did I get some good stuff here? Okay, here is the transcript, and this is exact.
The honorable thing to do upon realizing a mistake is to be honest about your error and then make it right, correct it, indemnify the action. If you were aware that recording in that area at CrimeCon was not permitted, why did you retain your illegal recording, transcribe it, and share it on your YouTube presentation for content? Why haven't you complied with the laws about updating your license and registering your vehicle now that you have resided in Texas for almost 5 years? Why are you creating your own quote-unquote porch guy in the wake of Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping and fear-mongering your followers? And why is there no record of you contacting 911 to report the quote-unquote aggressive door knocker? You're begging your audience to pay for not just your transportation and meals and lodging for CrimeCon in Vegas, but you're also asking for them to purchase a flight for your son to come take care of your pets. Why can't your pets stay at Barney's Ranch on the way to the airport just like everybody else's do? It's $75 a night for 2 dogs to share a luxury suite. Everybody loves Barney's Ranch. That's like the go-to place to board your fur babies when you're departing via the airport. You have told so many provable lies, lies that if JoQ Public can find via simple FOIA searches in Duncanville, in Dallas, in Hollister, California, and in Wanship, Utah, law enforcement can assuredly find at the press of a button. Perhaps worst of all, you have disgraced Miss Janet's legacy. If by some rare chance she was fooled by you in life, she is fully aware of your true character and what you have been up to now. And I imagine she is deeply ashamed of you and disappointed in your behavior. You have violated her daily through your words, your actions, and your insatiable greed. If you have spent 1 red cent from Miss Janet's accounts, they can press charges. If you have removed money from the ATM after May 16th, 2025 using her card, you are toast. It is only going to get worse from here as more and more truth rises to the surface. So, to the onlookers, I say, everything is going to be okay regarding the animal shelter. Tricia never had control, and now that she has bowed out, she won't be getting any control. And to Tricia, I say, this might be a good time to get out of Dodge. Go to CrimeCon and hope your path doesn't cross with any members of the behavior panel, because you're on their radar and the radar of many, many others who will be in attendance. And as long as you are in Texas, there will be people protecting the elderly. The buck stops with Beth B. There will never be another Janet Wolford. She was one of a kind. But my friends, I want to make you this pledge. There will never be another Beth B exploited by Tricia in the Dallas area. Not on my watch.
With regard to the messages that are in a given thread, right? We've talked about the fact that you are aware that you can reply to them, an individual message, forward or delete one, correct?
Correct.
You're also aware that it is possible to change the timestamp on any individual message. You go to settings and you go to general and you go to date and time. First of all, you can change the time zone of the message. In addition to being able to change the time zone, you actually can change the hour and minute to whatever you want it to be. With regard to photos on your phone, you are aware that you can change the date and time of any photo in your photo app, correct? There is a little, when you go to your iPhone, there's a little I for information. And all you need to do is, or I think it's for info or information. All you need to do is click on that and you get a pop-up from the bottom that gives you the choice to alter the date and time. Next to that date and time is the word adjust, and that's all you have to click on. And you can change the time from 12:10 a.m., or you can change it from 12:40 a.m. to 12:10 a.m., or you can change it from 1:45 to 12:10 a.m. And it's that easy.
I may try to redo this when I'm feeling better, because even I'm annoyed by how bad my voice sounds right now. So I imagine that is probably driving some of y'all stark raving mad. But I surely do appreciate your patience and support. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of our community. I love you.